Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Human rights in Saudi Arabia are not short of criticism, but the UK's police college has been training Saudi police officers since 2009. The British government argues this will contribute towards human rights reform. But Channel 4 News has learnt basic checks on how these policing techniques are being deployed simply are not being carried out, calling into question whether the training is making any difference at all. Fatima Manji has this report.
The country that gave the world the very first modern professional police force. With all this history and experience, British policing is seen as such a gold standard, it can sell training to police forces in other countries. Among them, controversially, Saudi Arabia. British police have been training Saudi officers since 2009. And the British government argues this will contribute towards reform. But Channel 4 News has learnt basic checks on how these policing techniques are being deployed aren't being carried out. In a document from the College of Policing, it admits there is a tension in reconciling the difficulties of working with countries whose standards of human rights may be at odds with our own. It says it monitors progress using the Kirkpatrick model, a four-step evaluation. But the college concedes it's powerless to investigate Saudi police behaviour and the training results, unless asked to do so by the customer. Customer is the key word, because one of the only ways that the College of Policing can evaluate its training of Saudi police officers is by asking them to fill out a feedback form with questions such as, how satisfied were you with this course, and was it too short or too long? And yet the Foreign Office says it maintains its relationship with Saudi Arabia to help bring about human rights changes in the country.
It appears to be a facade, and that human rights aren't the focus of the training. It's pretty shocking to consider that the College of Police might be improving the skills of police officers who are then going to go on to arrest people who are being prosecuted for peaceful protest in a repressive regime.
Among them Dawood Al-Mahroun, Al-Nimr and Abdullah Al-Zahar, accused of political protest, arrested as teens and allegedly tortured. They now face death. Ali's father spoke to us earlier today.
He's waiting for his name to be called out any second now, to be taken to the execution square, where his execution will be performed.
Tonight, the College of Policing told Channel 4 News its decisions on international training are taken by a board which includes the Foreign and Home Office. It considers human rights issues and assesses work against British values and interests.
Fatima Manji reporting. Well, joining us from Dorsington in Warwickshire is the Conservative MP and member of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, Nadhim Zahawi. Mr. Zahawi, it's rather extraordinary that Britain, wishing to try to improve the human rights record in Saudi Arabia, has no mechanism for determining whether the police assistance that we're giving is achieving that.
Well, our ambassador in Saudi Arabia, Simon Collis, I witnessed him when he was ambassador in the past in Syria, be robust with those governments when there are human rights violations. And in other countries, in Egypt, our ambassador there does the same thing. They are fearless when they actually hold those countries' leadership to account when there are human rights violations. Now, those countries then begin to ask us for help. They say, look, come and train our police force. Our police force is not as experienced or as disciplined as your own. Please help us. So when they ask for help, is it right that we should help them, or should we just step away and keep criticizing them without offering them any help? We have the best police force in the world. I think it's right that we offer that help. Of course, it's also right to be critical when there are human rights violations. As far as the course is concerned, there's obviously a questionnaire at the end of it, but more importantly, our ambassadors and our ministers, when they visit these countries, are briefed by our ambassadors, and we are robust when we hold these countries to account. Saudi's nowhere near being perfect, John. You know that, and that's going to be your next question, I'm sure.
No, my next question is, in fact, going to be...
Is it better to help them or not?
You've given me the opportunity to come in there. Now, my next question is to ask you what you think we're doing in improving policing, do you imagine it is in any way reducing the number of beheadings, stonings, crucifixions, things which are absolutely forbidden in our country and which we would never support? Are we really training police to make these kinds of activities still more effective?
Well, and we condemn the death sentence, and you're quite right. In our country, we would never, ever support it. We would never, ever condone them. But at the same time, my experience on the Foreign Affairs Committee is our ambassadors and our ministers raise human rights violations in countries like Saudi Arabia or Egypt, where the police have been involved. There's an example of terrible kettling at a football match in Egypt, when then the leadership of those countries say, look, we understand why you raise these things, but come and help us, come and train our police force. Is that such a bad thing? I don't think so. I think that's the right attitude to take.
In no way are we sending police training to Saudi Arabia in order to reduce beheadings, executions, beatings, and all the other things which happen to people when they're taken into custody.
Well, the Saudis have the death sentence as part of their constitution, part of their way they want to govern themselves.
Well, they also have stonings. Are you happy to have
we do not
stonings?
choose for ourselves. No, of course not. But I'd rather see police forces anywhere in the world, not just in Saudi or Egypt or other parts of the world in Asia, be as disciplined and as good as our police force. That can only be good for their society. When there are then violations, it is only right that our ambassadors, our ministers will take those up with their government and say that's a violation. But it must be better, John. It must be better that their police are trained like a British police force.
Last question. We closed our operation in helping them to run prisons in Saudi Arabia because we were not satisfied that there was a respect for human rights. Should we not be doing the same thing with the police force?
I think that policing is very different to running prisons, and having well-trained police men in Saudi Arabia, trained by the best British bobbies that we can actually put out there to train those forces in Saudi, in Egypt, in countries in Asia, it can only be good for the world and for those societies. It cannot do any harm, and actually it's the right thing to do. When we are so critical of their violations, we should also then offer the hand of training and ability to share experiences, how to do it well.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Thanks a lot. Thank you.